Well, hello there, friends and kin. I hope you're well. Today's Sunday service is a little bit different. I was unable to make it to the cemetery today. I've been feeling a little under the weather. the Our weather where I live has been flip flopping back and forth between hot and chilly, and as a result, my allergies have just been going berserk, and so I haven't been sleeping well. And so this morning I just decided to take the day and just rest, and I did. I spoke to a few people over the course of the day. That was about it. But it's really important to me to spend this time with you. And as I continue to do this, the more important it becomes. And it gives me a feeling of fulfillment. And so thank you for taking the time to spend with me, and and allowing me to do this. Your support means the world to me, and I have had the pleasure of getting into several fascinating conversations with people as a result of these videos, because a lot of people that watch these also are connected to me either on Facebook or Instagram. And after they watch my videos, they'll reach out to me and through DMs, and we'll have one-on-one discussions on the things I talked about. And man, that lights me up. I love it. And there are several people that I didn't really have any substantial contact with until I started doing these. And once they watched me a few times and connected with things I was talking about, or even disagreed with me and wanted to have a civil discussion, debating our points, and we ended up having a great conversation. That's happened multiple times, and it's meant so much to me to be able to make these new connections and meet all these fascinating people who I otherwise probably never would have had any sort of substantial communication with, other than just reacting to each other's posts on social media. So again, for all of you who take the time to speak to me, whether through the comments in the videos or my posts on Facebook and Instagram, or even through my inboxes, talking one on one, I love you all. I appreciate you all, and you guys have made doing this just an awesome experience. So, in light of that, I wanted to take the time to at least do something today. So, we're going to do a short reading, and then I'm going to do a card pull to give us some guidance for the week. And I feel like that'll be an effective Sunday service. So, my birthday was this past Tuesday. I turned 43, and that's still hard for me to contemplate. It felt like just yesterday I was hitting 30. And I was told once when I was in my 20s that once you hit 30, time is going to start flying. And before you know it, you're going to be in your 40s. Before you know it, you're going to be in your 50s. I didn't believe them. I believe them now. And if what they say is true, it's kind of terrifying in some ways. But yep, 43 years old, and I would say I don't feel a day over 20 until I try to do something physical, and then I feel like I'm 80. But one of my birthday presents, my beautiful, wonderful partner gave me this book, which I've had my eye on for quite a while. And I've only gotten a couple chapters in, so I can't really give it an effective review. But the the second chapter in this book is called "Who is Called and Who is Calling," and it talks about people's initial experiences being called into the craft, and how many people describe it as answering a call. Much like in certain Christian traditions, people talk about being called to the priesthood, or called to being a monk or a nun. And in this chapter, the author explains that process and cites several instances from historical record of how in the various witchcraft trials, witches said they were initiated or how they came to be a witch, and then compares that with testimonies from modern witches who talk about the experiences that led them to become witches. I want to read one of the shorter ones because there's several in here, and some of them are a little lengthy. But I wanted to read two of the shorter ones, and then there's a point that I want to elaborate upon after I read them. And this is these are the testimonials from modern witches. The historical ones, maybe we can go into that another time. But I think it's important to take a look at some of these modern statements. While I puff on my Djarum Black clove cigars because lame ass America, we can't get real clove cigarettes anymore. Man, I miss those things. These aren't quite the same, but they scratch the itch. And you still get that nice snap, crackle, pop sound. All right, the reading. I first saw my familiar as a young child. This was the only time anything like this happened in my childhood. I got out of bed and went to the back window and opened the curtain. I don't know how I knew to get out of bed and go there. There on the back lawn was a tall man and a boy about my own age. I felt no shock at seeing them. I returned to my bed. In the morning, I knew I got out of my bed and went there because the curtain was still moved. I didn't see anything again until I was about 14. One night, I simply got out of my bed and believed I went in my body. I opened the front door and went out. There was the boy I had seen, but now he was grown to the same age or older than me. He was on a horse, and he encouraged me to follow him. He took me to a spot in the road where a crossroads was that did not exist in real life. There was an old man there who showed me symbols. I was made to pick two of the objects he offered me. I was not taken like this again for many years, not until I had a kind of breakdown, and that world opened up to me like that, or opened up like that again. After it did, I was taken away more often, and the young man, who I now know as a familiar, took me to meet the people he says are my fairy family. He teaches me to heal and gives me things to write down. When I return, I frequently crave and drink large quantities of milk. And when I talk about witchcraft, or any subject for that matter, I crave large quantities of coffee. One more, and then we'll get into some commentary. My first call was during a dream when I was 5. I lived on a farm, and I dreamed once that there was a small shack in the field adjacent to my house where one did not exist. There was a small old woman who invited me in and began to show me plants and announced that she was a witch. It was the first time I remember hearing the word, and the experience stuck with me thereafter. About the same time, I was having nightmares about people cutting me in my sleep, but no one believed me. We later found evidence that our house was built on a really old cemetery and no one moved the bodies. So what's the point of reading these stories? Why did I pick that to read today? Well, I think it's important to tell these stories for numerous reasons. One of the friends I spoke with today via Instagram Messenger, I was telling her about these stories in this book and just how they were just how hard they hit me, because I had similar experiences over the course of my life, but I keep them to myself. I stay quiet about them. And, she had had experience doing the same. And it's because we all have a fear of being called crazy. Let's just not beat around the bush. We're all feared of being thought of as nuts. And, when we had these strange experiences as children, it was written off as having an overactive imagination, or, just being very fanciful. And, if we continued to indulge such things as we got older, there were the accusations of just being a liar or straight up delusional. And so, in order to not be thought of in that way and to not be that person that everybody gives weird looks to, we just keep these stories to ourselves. And we do ourselves a disservice there. I mean, it really can't be helped. I understand. I stopped talking about these things for a while. And, after being called crazy so many times, and having no one take me seriously, I just kept it to myself. And I kept trying to find a circle of people that I could talk to about these things without being thought of as a whack job. And it took me a very long time. Because even in the pagan community, you talk about some of these experiences, and we still have that tendency to, treat people that talk openly about it like they're nuts. And maybe some are, but I mean, I'm not going to say I'm not going to say that nobody who talks about their experiences is a lunatic. There's very, very well some of them might be, but I think we need a space where we can talk about these types of experiences with the other, these experiences with the unseen, because they're important. For so many of us, these experiences are what led us to pursue this path. And a lot of times there's keys in those experiences that will allow us to unlock the doors our path takes us to later in life. And our society, as it exists now, lacks this paradigm for us to analyze and learn from experiences such as the ones I read. Our culture completely invalidates such experiences as mental illness or childhood flights of fancy, and that's it. And in light of that, early on in our lives, when we're trying to explore and make sense of our experiences, a lot of us are led to investigate other indigenous cultures that do have an operative paradigm that allows people to find deeper meaning and understanding of these mystical experiences. But then we run the risk of cultural appropriation. And I have conflicting views on that topic, because I think sometimes that term is used in a virtue signaling context, and it's just something somebody can, point out in other people who are committing the sin so that they can feel morally superior. And that doesn't impress me, and I don't really care to spend my time in any sort of conversation with people that do that kind of virtue signaling. If you just want to point out the flaws in other people to make yourself feel better, I define that as a type of bullying. But I think a lot of us that went down that road were just looking for answers. And because our culture lacks the operative paradigm to process mystical experiences, I think that's the first natural, intuitive response, is to try to find somebody that does have an operative paradigm to process and understand those experiences. And but I do think we need to be mindful and respectful when it comes to learning about other cultural practices. We definitely need to have respect for where those ideas and practices come from, and we need to develop a relationship, preferably with living members of that cultural group, to try to understand it straight from the horse's mouth. And in my experience, more often than not, people from various different indigenous cultural groups are usually more than happy to talk about spiritual matters with other people, and even advise them. Here's some things you can do to help you work through that experience. And when that does happen and it's done in a respectful way, it's certainly not cultural appropriation. And that's one of the many things we wrestle with. And when I say we, I mean people of Western European descent. Our culture did away with the operative paradigms that facilitate mystical experience, and we've been trying to reclaim that in some way, shape, or form. Really, as soon as it was lost. Over the years with traditions such as ceremonial magic, of a variety of different flavors, and then, of course, various pagan revivals. But we've tried to recreate that operative paradigm within our own cultural context to greater and lesser degrees of success. But I think that's one of the things that the path of traditional witchcraft and even revival druidism, as I've come to understand it, that's something they offer us, is that operative paradigm for understanding and processing mystical experience. And that's part of what I want this channel to become, is a place where we can openly talk about these experiences without fear of mockery, or fear of there's a certain branch of elitist out there that hyperfixate on this notion that personal experience is invalid. The term UPG gets thrown around a lot, unverified personal gnosis. And it's either unverified or unvalidated, I can't remember which, communicates the same idea. It's your personal experience outside of what scholarship has proven or what scholarship suggests is accurate. Because scholarship, at the end of the day, this may rub some folks the wrong way, but hey, so be it. Scholarship, at the end of the day, is not hard fact. Now, there are some things arguably could be considered hard fact, but so much of our historical knowledge is educated guesses. Call it a theory, call it a hypothesis, a thesis, whatever. You can attach whatever fancy word you want to it, but it really is educated guesswork. And this whole notion that UPG is completely invalid and should be something that should be discouraged, I despise that notion, and I think that it's connected to this this notion that Abrahamic religion brought into our culture, that in order for something to be valid, it has to be written down in the historical record, or it's not real. And your personal experience, if it does not line up with what is written and what is established, then it is completely invalid, and you're either a liar or you're delusional. And that carries over even into the pagan world, where people's personal experiences are written off as completely invalid, and UPG is used as a way to discredit a person. You're not going to find that on my channel or in any forum that I ever create or host or moderate. Your personal experience, your story is welcome, and I look forward to hearing them. That's one of the reasons I always encourage comments in my videos. It's not just because I want more exposure and I'm trying to become more popular. I don't give a flying fuck about any of that. I want to hear from you. I want to know your story. I want to interact with you, and I want to share our stories again without that fear of mockery or being invalidated. So your thoughts, your experiences are always welcome in any forum that I maintain. And that's what I love so much about this book, hearing those stories. That was amazing. And it was very personally validating. Because when I look back on my own experiences, I don't feel so alone anymore. So we need to tell those stories. So before we drag on much longer, let's go ahead and get to that card pull. So for this coming week, what do the folk unseen advise for us? Two cards just jumped out of the deck. Let's see what we got here. Interesting. So this deck is one it's very unique. It's one I got off of Etsy. They call it the Castle deck. And look at the artwork on that face card. Now the regular cards are not all that elaborate, but the face cards in this deck are epic. So we've got the King of Clubs and the Eight of Hearts. So the clubs being the suit of our industrious labors. The king is the overseer of that labor. He's the regulator of the labor. And that's one of the things I like about this deck too. The pictures on the face cards usually line up very well with the meanings I associate with them. We see the King of Clubs there as a taskmaster. Now, the way I read the face cards, they're a duality. So you've got these points of extremes, and the idea is to find that balance point to keep that energy balanced and stable. Because when you get too far into either of the extremes, you either stagnate and you don't go anywhere, or chaos erupts and everything gets obliterated. So with the King of Clubs, what you're wrestling with is being too controlling of a taskmaster. You're basically being a slave driver. And then the other end of that extreme is disorganization and not having a plan and scrambling to keep things focused and in order. And so the idea is to have a plan for your goals and work toward it at a steady pace, but also be willing to work with the unpredicted and the unforeseen, because it's going to creep up every time. Every time you make a plan, you're going to deal with unforeseen variables. Don't view those as a failure. Don't let them discourage you. Keep your calm, keep your cool, and deal with them as they show up, one thing at a time. Don't overload yourself. Don't overwhelm yourself. So you don't have to be a slave driver, but you do need to keep some level of control. And you got to find that balance point. Now, the Eight of Hearts. Hearts is the suit of our personal relationships. And this is not always romance, though it can be. And it may be for you, may be for me. But it really is any close personal connection. And the Eight of Hearts is sort of like a party. It's we'll call it a congregation. It's the ballroom floor where people are dancing. And I think what these two cards are trying to tell us And this is actually speaking really hitting home for me with some things I've got on my table at the moment. But you've just got to keep yourself organized and focused and tackle the tasks at hand in an orderly way and stay on target. But don't be such a slave driver that you become a control freak. Stay cool, deal with problems as they arise, one thing at a time. And once you persevere through that labor, you're going to have a joyous occasion and joy that you're going to be able to share with people that are close to you that you care about. So, whatever it is you're working toward this week, staying on focus, but at the same time being patient with yourself and being patient with others. And you're going to experience a level of success that isn't just going to affect you, it's going to affect everybody you've got a close connection with around you. So success isn't just something that benefits you, it experiences everyone that's in your sphere of significance. Interesting piece of advice. If that resonates with you and relates to anything you're going through right now, feel free to let me know in the comments. You can always connect with me on Instagram. I usually post a link to my Instagram account, and you can message me directly there. Please feel free to. And with that, friends and kin, I think I'm going to sign off for the night, and I'm going to get some rest. It was a busy week, busy weekend. I'm pooped. But as always, I thoroughly enjoy this time we get to spend together. I look forward to it every week. And thank you for stopping by to spend that time with me. It means the world to me. Y'all have a good week, and I'll see you next Sunday.